Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into some really powerful source material you shared with us. It's excerpts from Respect Has No Color, the Victor Hayes story.
That's right. And our mission really is to unpack the key events in this one specific account. It details an encounter at a bank that, well, according to the source, had these huge repercussions.
Yeah, the scene itself sounds pretty ordinary to start. A man walks into a bank, goes up to the counter,
Mm-hmm.
but then this moment of judgment happens, and the consequences described are just astonishing. The source really focuses on that initial interaction, the teller's reaction.
It does. The account says she was immediately dismissive, even asking if he was lost or questioning if he was, like, an actual account holder.
Right. And when he says he's there for a wire transfer, gives his ID.
That's when the source says her whole demeanor just intensified. Got worse.
And here's where the account gets, well, pretty jarring. It describes her lips curling in disgust,
Yeah.
snatching the ID, throwing it on the floor like actual trash, it says, and then declaring she'd seen, quote, better fakes in prison.
Wow. And the source mentions onlookers, security guards, just sort of stunned. The man's first response, according to this narrative, silence. Just silence. He kneels down, picks up his ID. The source says his eyes showed this quiet rage.
Then, the account continues, security guards actually physically shove him out.
Shove him out. And one apparently adds, you don't belong in places like this.
Just incredible. And the source describes the teller and some others actually laughing, making fun of his shoes, speculating maybe he thought he could open a billion-dollar account or
And he's
something.
trialing on. So he's outside looking at the bank's logo. The source says he just nods slowly, pulls out his phone.
And this is the moment, right, the pivot point where the source reveals his identity. Victor Hayes,
Yeah.
co-founder of a, $2.3 billion fintech startup.
Exactly. And the reason he was there, to finalize a massive, transformative partnership deal with that very bank.
The contrast the source draws is stark.
Oh, absolutely. The bank's board. Reportedly thrilled. This deal was supposedly key to their whole future tech strategy.
And there's a quote from Victor earlier in the book, apparently, saying he just wanted a bank that, respects all its customers.
They were right on the verge of a public announcement. And the teller, the source really emphasizes this, had absolutely no idea who she'd just humiliated.
So, okay, the fallout for the bank. According to the source, what happens next?
Well, Victor's response was immediate and decisive. He sends this formal email straight to the CEO.
Okay.
And crucially, he includes security footage of the whole thing, throwing the ID, the mocking, him being pushed out, everything.
Wow, you got the footage.
Yeah. And the subject line, quoted in the source, your staff showed me exactly what your brand stands for.
Oof.
And the message itself, basically, we're ending all negotiations effective immediately, just like that.
And inside the bank, the source describes.
Chaos, utter chaos. PR team in crisis mode, investors apparently started pulling out, bank stock dropping.
You can imagine.
The CEO is described as panicked, trying desperately to suppress the footage, calling Victor, apologizing profusely.
And how did Victor react to that, according to the source?
Well, his assistant is quoted saying something like, he says he speaks through actions, not apologies.
Powerful.
And then, as the source details, the story just exploded. Social media, news outlets globally, focusing on the fact that this bank lost a $2.3 billion deal.
Because, as one headline quoted in the source apparently put it, a black tech billionaire was thrown out by a racist teller.
The teller, the account says, was suspended. The CEO made a public apology.
But Victor offered no response.
No response, according to the source. And then, just 2 weeks later, the narrative says he signed a new deal. Even bigger, $4 billion, with a competitor bank.
And notably, the source mentions this was a black-owned institution.
That's right, and there's a quote from Victor explaining it. I wanted to invest in a place where respect isn't earned by your skin color or your suit, just by your humanity.
The story also follows what happened to the teller, as the source presents it.
Yes, it does. Jobless, facing this ongoing public humiliation because the video went viral. Filled with regret, can't find new work. The source kind of frames her as the face of discrimination on the world stage.
And concludes with that thought.
Yeah.
Sometimes the loudest message is silence.
Yeah. So looking back at the account you shared, the arc is really clear. You see this single act of prejudice,
Yep.
right? Based entirely on appearance.
A snap judgment.
Exactly. And it leads, according to the source, to the loss of a multi-billion-dollar deal. Huge reputational damage for the bank and these profound consequences for the people involved.
And Victor Hayes' response, as it's presented here, it was calculated. Silence first, then very decisive action. choosing a new partner based on values, not just,
Right.
well, not just the deal itself.
Reinforcing his whole point about respect for humanity.
And the source is pretty blunt about the teller's outcome, framing her job loss and humiliation as this direct, very public consequence.
Definitely. So this story, as told in the source material you gave us, it really underscores those, often hidden costs of prejudice. And it highlights the power you have in choosing where you put your trust, your resources, aligning them with institutions that actually reflect your values.
It really makes you think, considering this account and Victor Hayes' actions as described. It poses a question, doesn't it? What do you think is the most effective way to respond when you feel, based on your own experience, you've been unjustly judged or disrespected? Something this story definitely leaves you pondering.